go ahead and hop into this compelling the fourth season of fourth year of PSO with PSO New Genesis. Let's do that, chat.
I've been wondering recently, how was PSO2 back when it launched in 2012? After all, PSO2 is very beloved by fans, while NGS is struggling to satisfy them. Fortunately, Sega has been archiving all of their monthly update posts, so this video series is possible. I'll be recapping 6 months at a time, as this lines up
especially since I know PSO back in JP year 1
schedule is centered around. So,
what
without
we
further
got.
ado, let us jump back to the days where was a selling point and see firsthand how much content PSO2 launched with.
Yep.
For PSO2, we'll look at updates from July 4th all the way to January 2013. For NGS, we'll do the same.
Well, the time we all lost hope of it coming to America.
The first major content update, Sandstorm Requiem. Before we start, I must unfortunately disclaim that some data might be inaccurate in a few places. The Akashic records are unfortunately incomplete, and many fan wikis didn't keep track of the implementation date of all the things. So I apologize for any mistakes that might happen throughout the series.
The love of
I'll try
2011,
to point out where the inaccuracies might occur as much as possible. Additionally, there is a big difference in how each game handles content updates. I'll explain that in detail once I'm done talking about each update. The day is July 4th, and the game officially launches on PC in Japan. On launch, we only had 4 areas to explore. In terms of bosses, we had 7 of them at launch. Dark Ragni was the final area boss of the ARC's ship Urban Area Urgent Quest, but could spawn in any exploration quest randomly. The mag leveling system was available at launch and allowed the player to feed their mag various items in order to level it up. Depending on which stats it had at certain level thresholds, it would change forms accordingly. There was no X-Cube shop yet, so you couldn't just force feed it food devices. That item was exclusive to AC scratch tickets. There were 3 classes available at launch: Hunter, Ranger, and Force. The 3 of them wielded the same weapons as their NGS counterparts, with the key difference being that Gunblade was available for all classes. Wind and Dark techniques were not implemented yet, and Force couldn't boost the power of Light techniques. For some reason, Sega wanted Force and Tector to specialize into different technique elements, which was definitely one of the design decisions of all time. In terms of equipping your character, you had 9 weapon rarities. However, there was no weapon potential system, and grinding
I did not know it was 9 out of the gate.
Instead of the current EXP-based system, weapons had to roll a d20 to decide if they would level up, and, if you were unlucky, they could de-level as well. PSO2 had a potency floor mechanic just like NGS, however it was essentially invisible. Because weapons, which were classified as rare, had a hidden dexterity bonus, the dexterity stat ended up not matching for the vast majority of weapons. Way to implement a mechanic just to invalidate it 5 minutes later. This
Wow, something just never change with Sega, does it? Something, you know, how the more things change, the more it stay the same, chat.
info will be on the test in the 3rd episode, write it down. I'd also like to point out that weapon camos didn't exist yet. Aside from the exploration quests, there was also one-time attack quest, which you at the time could not play solo, coupled with an interrupt ranking system. Interrupt rankings are similar to our current ARC's records. They'd be weekly leaderboards, which would keep track of things like who opened the most red containers, who had the fastest clear on a time attack quest, or who had the most visitors in their personal quarters. Which
like we have that in global.
Because SG wasn't implemented yet,
but no one paid attention to it.
High on the list was.
Also didn't help that it was barely under like 9 menus. That also didn't help.
A medal to display in your personal quarters. Riveting. The story included chapter 1 through 4.
Don't bat trophy.
However,
chat.
In order to experience it, you not only had to play the story quests once. You also had to replay them multiple times, because the player has bullshit time-traveling powers. But if that wasn't enough, you had to also go through the tedious Matterboard system. Just looking at it makes me have Vietnam flashbacks. To progress through the Matterboard, you had to do certain things the board asked of you, like killing a certain mob a couple of times. The great thing about Matterboards is, they would only update once the quest is finished. Which basically meant you could only progress one node at a time. I cannot contain my sarcasm.
All it was gone.
but at
By the
least
time
the
we
matter
got
boards
it.
would reward you with semi-useful items, like a weapon or armor with decent augments on them. Speaking of augments, if you think the current system in PSO2 is shit, just imagine the same system, where you can only use 2 fodder items to affix your gear. I'm not joking. But hey, at least the game had a title system on launch, no login stamps though. It's kinda wild to think of an online game launching without daily login bonuses these days. To finish off the launch of PSO2,
Yeah, that's
we had
not
the AC
uncommon
scratch
back
ticket,
in the
Happy
day.
Wedding, giving us very nice wedding outfits. I'd like to point out that the character creator was much more limiting back in the day. For example, we didn't have outerwear, basewear, or innerwear. To put it into NGS terms, all we had was set wear, and we couldn't remove ornaments either. Our accessory slots were also limited to 2. You could really feel the PlayStation Vita limitations creeping in, despite that version not being available on launch.
Yeah, all that gone. Yeah, all that got gutted at some point over the 10-year development. But yeah, that also, by the way, probably makes sense why in base, the outfits are items and not consumables. Since, you didn't have all the other wells underneath. That actually explains why that is the way that is in bait game.
2 weeks after launch, the game would receive its first content update. The underground tunnels would release with new automata enemies, Tranmiser, and big
Wow,
garter
so a whole
boss
new
enemies.
zone in 2 weeks. Okay.
Additionally, new client orders would be released, but they'd be copy-pasted from the previous regions, just adjusted for the new area. I won't be mentioning client orders being added again for that reason. To top this update off, we'd receive a new AC scratch ticket. It's summer, it's a festival, giving us Japanese summer festival outfits. You'll notice throughout the series that PSO2 was much more Japan-focused than NGS is. 2 weeks later, on August 1st, Fong Banzer and Fong Banshee would be added as random bosses to the Forest Exploration quest. Additionally, we would get the Summer Lobby throughout August, and Rappies would change their appearance to Summer Rappies. We wouldn't receive a seasonal
So
urgent
to see the
quest yet.
wappy thing was
It's
there
not
almost day
written on
one.
the website if we did. Lastly, we get the Summer Vacation AC scratch ticket, bringing us the joy of wearing a bikini in a video game. This month was definitely light on content. After all, the players were more than busy with the time-gated content. You guys have no idea. Nowadays you just talk to Coffee and she hands you everything immediately, but back in the day, you had to work for everything. Do you want to unlock the hard difficulty? Well, go into the field and collect a bunch of capsules, which only started dropping now that you picked up the client order. This is just one example, but PSO2 was full of things like this. When
Yeah.
NGS adds a new class, you log in and
That like no different than like example offhand. Some of you probably would know would be like, you put Signet on your character on Final Fantasy 11 to get crystals and also the currency. But same ideal.
it's already unlocked and ready to go. When PSO2 adds a new class, you need to make sure the previous ones are leveled up to 30 and complete some other arbitrary task
Yeah.
to get the
You
permission
didn't get
to
them
use
right
it.
away.
Minor rant over. On August 8th,
I was
we would
okay
receive
with
the
that.
Floating Continent Exploration
Probably because
quest along
Final
with new
Fantasy
Dragon
11
King
and how it
enemies,
was as
new
well.
false spawn enemies, the Catradransa, and Quartz Dragon boss enemies. We'd also be graced with the appearance of Mikiala. Okay, this is why we don't have nice things anymore. Sega makes a NPC design contest, and people vote for this. She'd cursed the lobby for 2 months, and I don't think Sega has ever held an NPC design contest ever since. Anyway, feel free
Seems
to
about
include
right.
Mikiala in your PSO2 fanfictions. I really can't wait to read about her misadventures, or the deep lore about how she's secretly a photoner, more powerful than Daddy Luther. 3 weeks later, we would get Chapter
You
5
know that
and
well.
6, in which we'd explore the newly added areas, as well as the shop staff Carnival AC scratch ticket, allowing us to dress up as an ARX ship clerk. That is all there was back in August. Another light month in terms of content, but
Oh yeah, 100% Boyd. It like PSO like even now is like I could complain up and down about bait PSO as much as NGS. I get like the real dissing is any with obviously back in what the timeline we in right now being like so much more limited. It still, if you notice here, like the biggest thing I'm noticing with this is some of the stuff with like the time gating stuff and the coffee stuff. It's still like leaning more toward kind of what NGS need. Maybe not so much time gating, I get origin quests, you could say time gated, could you wait in on them outside of a handful of trigger ones. But like having stuff to do to unlock progression, NGS don't really have that. So the question is also, I get, not really a question, I get also thinking about with it being like 2011, 2012, is, you know, also the other hand of that is doing that type of repetitive tasks. Because it is, I get the example would be in like PSO2, you do repetitive tasks to get items or augment that you can sell or use. Any using more likely be replaced in a week or two, or just given to you in a month. Well, it seemed like in bait PSO, more like the grind was to progress like actual content. Any of the content was limited, you're still progressing to unlock said content. And it could be one of them cases, maybe just not going into it in that video, but such as the capsule thing would be like, what would like the rarity of the capsule dropping? Because if it was like 1 out of every 10 enemies, like that grind, for me at least, that grind would be probably fine. Unlike New Genesis right now, well, you know, it's like 1 in a billion half of the time, or just non-existent, because I still haven't got any good stuff ever. But, you know, it's like, I kind of feel like it's a little bit like the trade-off peel, you know, a bit. But nonetheless, it's like, yeah, bait PSO obviously had its own issue, and any now, it's like, still have a lot of issues. And that not even counting the issue that came from, you know, Sega, you know, getting rid of stuff. Not even counting like that.
With the new matter boards, you had at least something to chew on. Fighter, Gunner, and Tector would finally join PSO2's roster of playable classes on September 12th. Along with them, Sega would implement new weapons corresponding to these classes, as well as photon arts, with the exception of wands. Wands had no photon arts. Wind and dark techniques were finally added though. Additionally, the friend recruitment system would be implemented, which we in Global never received, for various reasons, and the recycle shop would get added as well. Google Translate kept translating the recycle shop to thrift shop, so I'm just gonna pretend and say thrift shopping was born on that day.
Oh my god. Okay. I want to know so bad now. Did thrift shopping, did they name them channel that on purpose because of this? Did we just discover lore about Trip that we didn't know? I gotta know now. I gotta know. Trip shopping. If you end up watching that video for whatever reason, let me know in the comment. Let me know on Twitter. I gotta know now. 'Cause man, if not, that is one hell of a coincidence. That is awesome if that is the case. God, I wish I had that kind of foresight when naming things.
Happy birthday. 2 weeks later, Alliance Quarters would be added to the game. By collecting Alliance points, you could grow a photon tree.
Okay, yeah, this is going quick.
Buffs for 2 hours.
Because, like, most of the stuff that is being added at that point in the first 6 months, it's stuff that was still any, like, important 10 years after the fact, any in Global. Well, that set a little bit of a precedent, doesn't it?
In order to collect points, you'd need to do the newly added Daily Alliance client orders. Nowadays, you get points by doing basically anything in the game, but back in the day, the system was a bit more grindy. Additionally, we would receive the second time attack quest, as well as Chapter 7. You could also finally transfer your character from one ship to another. So, if you accidentally started out on the wrong ship, you could finally transfer to where all your friends are. The lobby would change to the moon viewing lobby, but no seasonal urgent quest to accompany it. It's kinda weird looking back at the seasonal updates, and seeing they had nothing in them, except for a different lobby. Lastly, we got the Autumn Full Moon AC scratch ticket.
But not horrible to
The first major update for PSO2 would happen on October 10th, and it would add a lot of things. Firstly, the level cap increased from 40 to 50, and a very hard difficulty would be added. Additionally, all bosses would receive a rare version that could only spawn on very hard difficulty. Most importantly, the subclass system was finally here.
Yay!
Not a single skill was main class exclusive yet, so you could go crazy with that system. Mr. Umbla was added as a random trial to all exploration zones, and each class would be blessed with new PA and techniques. Additionally, 10-star weapons would finally arrive, which meant there was more gear to farm for. 2 weeks later,
I feel like it's
the
not
lobby
too
would
bad.
receive a Halloween makeover.
But
Trick or
6
Treat,
months?
the first seasonal urgent quest, would finally arrive. To cap things off, we'd also receive the Halloween night party AC scratch ticket, giving us very spooky costumes. On November 7th, a new area was added, the Navirius Ruins. With it, we would get the new Wilgarda and Zeshrader bosses. We would also finally receive the X-Cube and Photon Drop systems. Overleveling was finally a thing, and would reward you with X-Cubes, which you could use in the X-Cube exchange to get some goodies. This would make farming and grinding weapons much more enjoyable. However, you couldn't recycle 10-star weapons for X-Cubes yet, so overleveling was the only way of getting them. 2 weeks later, Chapter 8 was added, setting up the arrival of Dark Falls Elder the following month. And this is something I'm not 100% sure of, but I assume Falls Hyunal was added.
I would too, honestly, X. Cause like I said, it's very eye-opening to see how many of the mechanics were actually added in the first 6 months, and how much of these are still relevant into this day, at least in global.
For all exploration quests as a random encounter. After all, he would appear in the story by now. The lobby would take the Ark ceremony appearance and be accompanied by the AC scratch ticket, flag ceremony. Apparently, November would be this fake Ark's holiday. I'm not sure if it was ever explained in the game itself. On December 5th, the second major update dropped. Rare weapons finally received potentials. With just a couple of photon spheres, you too could reset your weapon grind level back to 0 when leveling potentials. This essentially forced you to grind to plus 40, since leveling up the potential would reset you to 0 3 times.
Oh wow, so it was technically just a pataging system. Which I get makes sense, because I get it would be roughly around the time that, that became very popular in Call of Duty. So I guess it would make sense that Sega would adapt that into the game. It almost like Sega actually paid attention to the game during that time, chat.
Very fun system that the whole family can enjoy. Parallel areas were also added, and time attack quests were reworked so you could tackle them solo. Rather unfittingly to what's happening in the story, the lobby would receive a nice, warm, and fuzzy Christmas theme, and the seasonal urgent quest Merry Christmas on Ice was available. A week later, Dark Falls Elder would fucking kill everyone. I guess world-ending events on Christmas are something PSO2 and Persona 5 have in common.
Rest in peace, everybody.
The urgent quest was split into 2 parts, 30 minutes in which you try to kill as many Falls Arms as possible and 30 minutes in which you try to dispose of the main body. It would be the first time we'd receive an urgent quest that focuses on a single raid enemy, and would shape the future of urgent quests to come.
Yep.
On December 26th, we'd cap off the year with a Happy New Year Wishes AC scratch ticket, and on January 1st we'd receive the New Year Shrine lobby, in which you could interact with the shrine to get your fortune read for the new year.
Oh yeah,
have
Darth
any
Paul
gameplay
can't
effects,
die.
of course.
He will be back, I guarantee
This is where
it.
the timeline gets a bit muddy. Because of the PlayStation Vita open beta, the archives on PSO2's website skipped 2 months, so I can only assume what happened in January. I do know for sure that the abduction system was added on January 9th. This system allows you to be abducted to the Darker Den upon trying to start a time attack quest.
Which, by the way, chat, if you want to know how to do this in global, I got a video about that. It's from like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Actually, probably more like 2 years ago. But I got a video about how to get abducted by aliens in bait PSO if you want it.
In case you didn't realize, time attack quests were basically the endgame of PSO2. Time attack quests and the interrupt rankings were the sole reason you grinded during episode 1. Upon an abduction, you have to fight your way back to an LZ in order to get rescued. If you successfully escaped, a clone of your character can spawn in single-party areas of other players on your friends list.
Oh, dude, that's
neat. It's a very
neat.
convoluted system, and back in the day, most single-party areas were just the boss room. And we've reached the cutoff point. That was the first.
Speaking of possession stuff, that's actually kind of neat.
6 months of PSO2. Now, let's inspect New Genesis. The day is June 9th and we're introduced to the
How
Elia
many?
region. This
A
region came
lot.
with 3 combat sectors, 5 exploration sectors, and 11 training quests, split across 8 cocoons and 3 towers. The region launched with 11 boss enemies, spread across 7 dolls bosses and 4 altars bosses. I will not count formers here, as that's unfair towards PSO2. We will only count original bosses for NGS. The game only launched with just 1 story chapter, however, NGS would have 6 overhauled classes, and more gameplay systems available on launch, compared to PSO2's launch. The level cap was only 20 and you could reach it very quickly. Additionally, the new multi-weapon system as well as the
You could elongate the menu system of walking, which it wasn't for the 4th month, but yeah, you could once the game started walking.
preset skills system would be available. The preset skills system was definitely one of the design decisions of all time. Character creation was expanded. Many gender and racial barriers were removed and finger movement was added. Augmenting equipment was streamlined a lot. Not only was applying augments easier now, the
Oh god, there's so much. Yeah, I would honestly take the augment system from NGS over PSO2 any day. Cause my god, the PSO2 one is confusing, and even to this day still confusing. Like holy hell, chat. Anytime I ever did that, like I had to go back like my video and Jim's video to be like, wait, how do we do this again? Like my god.
augments would multiply damage instead of increase stats. This is very important because in PSO2, different stats boosted different things, confusing new players in the process. The game would
Yeah, they
also launch
streamlined
with
that
the
a
Soldier
lot.
Line AC scratch ticket. The title system would unfortunately be absent, and weapons would only go up to rarity 4. We also didn't have an equivalent of interrupt rankings, or time attack quests, but you could argue that getting a fast clear on the trainee quests filled that role a bit, since they actually track your personal best time.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's your personal bet. I still wish it was solo, like across the solo. Like, I wish you went to one of the trainee area and be like, here's like the top 10 players on the solo. Like, oh my god, chat. Just imagine if they had that for every single one, and then have it like every, I don't know, every 2 weeks to every month. You know, being like, whoever would, like, number 1 get, like, I don't know, like, 500 dodgy or etchy. Or better yet, have it well, like, top 3, like, number 3 get, like, 100 dodge jump. Number 2 would get, like, you know, like, 250 dodge jump. And then number 1 be, like, you would get, like, 500 AC, but only given out, like, once a month. And have that for every single, one. Just imagine, chat. Like, don't get me wrong, there would be players that would, obviously farm AC, but then at that point, it like, then not only do you get people getting AC, that can then buy more quack ticket. Like, don't get me wrong, they be losing money, technically. But just imagine, like, if they give the AC out at the top rank, and then the player who got that spend some of that AC, and then got a hook in them, because once they hit number 1, if they stay number 1, they can't get any more. So say the player was like number 1 on all area for multiple months, they can no longer get AC from the game, and they have to spend money, but they addicted to AC scratches. Or that how they finance it premium, because premium would have been good, let's say good. And then not being able to farm that anymore, they will have to then spend real money to buy that stuff. Like, it literally, the whole, like, cocaine or any type of drug, the 4 hit it always free type of deal. Like, yeah, you want to run into all the cocoon, you could make you, like, maybe $20 in store credit. Like, $20-$30. But if you're really good, you're not going to be making any more AC for a very long time till people start beating you. Just saying here. That would be great. It would have been cutting the losses, though, I feel. But do they do it? Do they do it for like the whole server X? That's the question here. I don't think they do it for the whole server. Do it always just personal bets, right? Like the closest thing we have to it, like the arc records. But at the same time, it's like, you know, we get badges, yes, but at the same time, is the thing about artwork. I feel like one of them cases of most people who do it and not setting, not setting it fun, doing it over and over again for fractions of seconds. Because at least most people I have seen or talked to about it, it seemed to be one of them cases of they do it, they get them 50 or whatever it is for like number one for like, the week or 2 weeks, and then they just don't touch it again. And then literally they haven't updated the art record shop at all, so by pretty much who like heavily farm that, always got all the items and stuff, and it's just like, it's not exactly a black and white because it reset. Because while I'm talking about it, you don't reset it. You only give out rewards like once a month, but the leaderboard as it don't reset. So it's not much of a black and white when it gone in a week or two. Oh yeah, absolutely. Certain classes that would be the whole thing of like if you get into like that type of gameplay sim, would be like Pacific classes, Pacific weapon, Pacific loadout will become meta. But for the people that is that competitive, like I can vouch. I fell down that rabbit hole with trials like back in the day, back when I worked with extra players. Like me and my colleagues at the time, and like we used to fight all the time over fractions of seconds in that game. And then Sam came along and beat us all. But that's beside the point. But nonetheless, if we had that, any of like for you, that wouldn't be ideal for you, which and we told the reason you would have other content ideally to do. But, for a lot of people, that would be like the content that they would be hungry over doing. Hell, I know I would be. That right there would be like motivation for me to get like quote unquote bets in slot gear. But, ideally you also want to build other stuff around it. Well, for like people like you or people who don't want to do it or don't really care for that type of competition or grind. They have other stuff to do, ideally. But, that I'll hold this in discussion because that getting into Sega doing other stuff, which we have seen how that have went. Oh, absolutely. I would want better dungeons and stuff as well. That a given, 100%. It's just what I'm talking about be one of them things if, Sega want to, add something that don't involve, adding new content like, bosses, layout, design, use something they always have. Because I think the thing that frustrates me about towels and stuff in that end, they have the system there, they're just not using it, with just being personal bets. Because, doing, video screenshots, world record stuff, and, that ain't good and all, but the thing is, that stuff outside of the game. Because what I'm talking about is, in-game, that all player can see at all time without having to go to a metaboard, a Reddit, a random Discord channel. It's all, in one place. And in return, as we have established from the player base, but not even PSO in general, is, no, cause that type of stuff, what you talking about with, the videos and stuff, is that falling into the community hand, such as the Miku console, Cat Day, that type of stuff, of how many people know about that, care about that stuff, or any, in the camp of being able to find out about that stuff. Because, some people just want to log on for an hour or two after work, after kid go to bed, whatever. And, they never get involved with any community people outside of in-game. So having it in the game would be great. And also, having rewards that actually, matter as well would help, which come into the point of that G and AC stuff.
All urgent quests scaled with the amount of players, so clearing UQs as fast as possible by yourself was also an activity you could indulge in. 1 week later, we'd get the SG Scratch, Passionate Spirit, giving us outfits worn by NPCs in the story. A week after that, Gigantics would finally spawn in exploration sectors.
Ah, that's still like the
They were
best
tough
time of
enemies,
PSO.
which would only spawn during bad weather and require a lot of effort.
Good for the echo chat. In PSO or like New Genesis died tomorrow. My two favorite memories of it were Japanese Quote Beta and any we had to jump through hoop because I didn't realize I had to have a VPN to play it, which was the whole thing. Also, I still don't know how I got into it. I still don't know how it just happened. And my second favorite memory was literally the full like day or two Gigantic were out before they fixed it. Back when they were broken and they were fun, the fun time was tied to the weather storm. And then having to kill them in that time limit, any if it wasn't put to work like that day one, still, my God, that was so much fun. That was so much fun just hanging out, waiting for shit to spawn. Having like a Japanese wiki, or I gave it technically a Japanese Google sheet that was like live updating when time happened because Japan was ahead of us. Good time, chat. Good times. Still the bet time in PSO, hand down.
Effort to kill. We would see another AC scratch ticket, Wedding Celebration. A week later, another AC scratch ticket, Oracle Renewal Collection. Now, I'll get ahead of the meme and address the AC scratches in NGS. Yes, there are a lot of them, but I'll excuse at least the Oracle Renewal scratches because they were originally meant to release sooner. On JP servers, the graphics engine update came before NGS would launch, and as a result they got the Oracle Renewal scratches in that time.
Yeah, that the whole thing as well, like NGS, or in that update. God, what was it, chat? Like, that was available in JP. What was it? Was it like 3 or 4 months before Global got it? Because Global got it day one. Which, kind of shot it in the foot a little bit as far as, like, hype.
Time period. The global version didn't have this. We received the graphics engine update and NGS on the same day, and as a result, these scratches had to be re-released. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair for global players, right? Don't worry though, Sega made sure to release too many AC scratches even if we excuse the Oracle Renewal ones.
Yeah.
On July 7th, we would celebrate the
Not
9th
long.
anniversary of PSO2. All enemies in Helpha would drop seasonal points which you could exchange for various items for a limited time. The rewards weren't great, but at least farming in combat zones felt a bit more rewarding. On the same day, we'd receive another AC scratch ticket, Sweet Summer.
What made
If you
seasonal
didn't have
stuff
enough things to spend
kind
your
of
money
okay.
on, don't worry, because a week later a total of 4 AC scratches would release. Emotes memory, hairstyle memory, accessory memory, and weapon camo memory. The best thing I can say about them is that they are recycled content, but I really think Sega should have considered them as a gameplay reward instead.
I agree.
It's the 9th anniversary after all.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, dwelling on that, I'm with them. I would have been so much better as a, reward for whatever reason. Realistically, it probably would have been the seasonal shop, but, drops would have also been great. Good drops, not crappy RNG drop.
Another week later, we'd get yet another AC scratch ticket, Trainee Line. This one was actually pretty cool since it had outfits loosely themed around the classes. On August 4th, we would see the return of the Braver class, which introduced katana and bow weapons with it as well as vastly overhauled gameplay compared to its PSO2 counterpart. A side story was added to finish Chapter 1, but the scratch craze only continued as we saw the release of the Sunshine Marine Stars AC scratch ticket and the Astute Braver SG scratch ticket. Now, if the scratch overload wasn't bad enough, what we didn't know at the time was that the SG tickets would keep updating on top of each other instead of replacing each other. A lot of players felt cheated by that, and
Oh my God, I was with that at long because up to that point everybody just assumed because Sega wouldn't tell us anything. Tell me if you sense a trend, chat. But Sega wouldn't verify or kind of walked around it or just never bluntly said. So because of that, a lot of people, once we got to the point where hey, Etchy going away on this date. Right before that, everybody blew the Etchy to try to get our hands on everything. Just to find out the net update. They're oh no, we only add I don't remember exactly how many items. Let's say 40 items. It like only like barely 20 of them, barely half of them were new, and the rest of it were just leftovers. And man, it pissed everybody off so bad at that time.
Sega had to apologize for their lack of transparency. A week later,
yeah, they apologized for it. Still haven't got any better at all. And then Nine County, you know, thrown in like mid translations as well, because the headline streams.
we'd get the second Oracle Renewal AC Scratch, bringing a few more outfits based on popular items from PSO2. On August 18th, we would be greeted with
my
a new
favorite
urgent
origin
quest, Mining
quest.
Rig Defense, Elio. The quest would introduce a new boss enemy, Destragas, which unfortunately wouldn't be added as a random spawn to any of the combat sectors.
Yeah.
We'd also
Only
receive a new AC Scratch
towels.
ticket, Summer Sky Seaside,
purples,
and a
I
week
mean.
later another update to the SG Scratch, Ark's Conductor, giving us Maconn's outfit as well as the operators from Central City. September 1st kicked off with the Autumn event and my birthday. The Autumn event wasn't too different from the Anniversary event, however. It was the same deal of collecting
Yeah, and this is when we started realizing the holiday event is just gonna repeat over and over and over and then over some more. And each today. Repeat, chat. What kind of drug they take their own faults? So that what it is. They're just snipping that up and not paying attention to anyone else's. Let be will.
points to get a few items. Well, I guess it's worth noting Sega did
And you wonder why all of us who, you know, been since Global Elite a bait PSO, and in some cases, some of us who've been around since JP, you know, the ship 2 days. And you wonder why a lot of the older players are like so fucking jaded about NGS.
didn't release 4
And Sega.
Scratch tickets this time. Instead, we got just one, Moonlight Sanctuary, with outfits themed after the moon-gazing season. 2 weeks later, we'd get another AC Scratch ticket, Silhouette of Darkness, with outfits themed after sci-fi ninjas and samurai. Another 2 weeks passed
That
before
too,
we
eh?
get another AC Scratch ticket, Oracle Renewal 3, with another set of PSO2 outfits renewed for NGS specifications. October 13th would see the release of the Bouncer class, which introduced soaring blades and jet boots. Similar to Braver, it'd be vastly overhauled compared to PSO2, whenever for better or for worse I can't really tell. I do like
That is up to
bouncing on
you.
top of things, but the class never resonated well with me. I need a big hammer in my life, okay? This wasn't all there was to the update, however. Battle Dia Yellow and Purple quests were added.
And congratulations, chat. You tile one around in circles, killing the same mobs over and over again like you did from 1 to 20. Now you're doing it in the Matrix. And now it's faster. A lot faster. Maybe not as fast as the Dia one, but still faster. And then you can get the end game.
Now, Battle Dia Yellow is sort of a catch-up quest. It rewards a lot of EXP as well as upgrade materials. Meanwhile, Battle Dia Purple would become the quest people would min-max their gear for. It was a boss rush, featuring 5 gigantic bosses back-to-back, which you can tackle with up to 4 players. This quest would have a HP scaling system, meaning it was possible to clear it by yourself. However, the HP scaling system would favor full parties a lot. That hasn't stopped dedicated players from making it their solo endgame activity, coupled with unofficial leaderboards for solo clears.
Yeah, the closest
And
thing
honestly,
to
that is
in-game
great.
we got.
If the game you love doesn't
Other
have
than
enough
credit
content,
cards.
then make your own content. That is how these recent videos of mine got started. The mission pass system from PSO2 would return and special scratches also were added. This added a much needed reward structure for playing the game. The SG scratch would get updated with
Because honestly, the mission pack is still like one of the best things that got added. Any if it's just one more thing to spend money on. Lucky enough for once, you know, Sega didn't lock, you know, it behind premium or locked it behind real money. So, you know, you buy the ticket with that cheap. But with that being said though, it's like The mission pack still the problem is the items in it not great. You know, since it literally they're what 40 tilts now, and out of the same 15, 20 items to repeat at maximum pretty much.
Bouncer outfits, and we'd receive another AC scratch, Aerial Defenders. A week later, we'd receive the second last Oracle Renewal scratch. Almost there, guys. The AC scratches will slow down, I promise. On October 27th, we'd also get the Halloween event, which came with a web panel event. This meant that arcs all over the world would collect points, and depending on how many we'd collect, we'd get more bonuses for doing so. This might have not changed the seasonal event drastically, but at least added an element of excitement to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
To cap the month off, we'd also receive the AC Scratch ticket, Monster Masquerade, featuring Halloween-themed outfits. Overall, October was a good month for NGS, adding a lot of systems the game was lacking and could build upon. 2 weeks later, we'd receive the second season of the Mission Pass, as well as the Medical Masters AC Scratch, featuring outfits based on doctors and nurses. Insert Hestia here. Another 2 weeks pass before we get the next AC Scratch ticket, Mystical Reverie, featuring many fantasy-inspired outfits. And finally, on December 1st, we would get the final Oracle Renewal Scratch. We can finally slow down with the scratches. Thank Deus. On December 14th, NGS would see its first major update, Sandstorm Requiem. This update would feature an all-new region, Retem. It would come with 2 new combat sectors, 4 new exploration sectors, and 7 new Trainia quests, split between 6 cocoons and 1 tower. Yellow and purple Retem Battle Dia would be available on launch of the region, and there would be a total of 11 new bosses added. The story would continue with Chapter 2, and 5-star equipment would arrive. Leah May and Ronaldine would finally be added, giving you repeatable tasks, which the game was sorely lacking. Level cap would be increased from 20 to 35, and light, dark, and wind techniques would finally release. Most importantly, the title system would return, giving us long-term goals to strive for. The update was capped off with a new Mission Pass season and the AC Scratch ticket, Mercenary style, giving us outfits that would help us immerse ourselves in the harsh desert environment. And that's our cutoff point for NGS. So, let's recap. Overall, NGS and PSO2 really weren't that much different in terms of content, if we compare them side by side like that. PSO2 was far more modular. This allowed Sega to release a planet unfinished and add new areas later. Basically, PSO2 would drip feed its content as opposed to relying on one huge update. Overall though, I must say that, making this video gave me newfound appreciation for the content in NGS. Yes, there might not be a lot of quests to do or gameplay incentives, but they still created a huge semi-open world with many unique enemies that are a lot of fun to fight. If you're into taking screenshots, you'd have a stupid amount of locations to choose from. And the improvements to character creation only continued to strengthen PSO2 NGS in being the best online game, in which you can express yourself through your character. In fact, that is mainly why I main this game. This is the only game where I can have this succubus form, that looks exactly how I want it to look. I also have a personal connection to it, but that might be a topic for another video. This is only the first part of my recap series. I hope you found this video interesting or fun to watch.
Yeah, I enjoyed to see what Fate was like.
So, if you have any criticism about my videos, or you think something could be improved, definitely let me know. I'd like to thank everyone who commented on my previous video. I was genuinely surprised to see this many comments on what's really my first serious video. I love every single one of you. What's your opinion on how the content in both games was handled? I'd love to see everyone's opinions on this in the comments. Next episode, we will be looking at the content releases right up until Kvari's and PSO2 Episode 2 release. I hope you're as excited as I am. Take care!
Yeah, I kind of feel like obviously the main diss in heel is maybe this is the whole thing. Maybe this is the separation. It's like technically not wrong. You know, NGS did get technically morphed up. But I think the reason, at least for me, why I don't feel like a lot, is mainly because not a lot of it is like progression pushing. Well, Elite and Bates, it seemed like it obviously was. Cause Bait PSO I didn't keep up with because, you know, the thing was about Bait PSO, that was back in 2011, 2012. Was hyped for it, they announced it, and then it got delayed, and then canceled, and then, you know, it just slipped my mind to it was announced during the Epop event, which, by the way, you can see my reaction to that if you want on my YouTube channel. But, so, like, the in-between of, like, 2012 to, what, 2019, like, all that time period, just, you know, I wasn't a part of. Because at the time I didn't realize I could do JP, and honestly, after jumping through the hoop to play JP, though, for, like, a week or so before my account got banned, I would not have had the patience to do it back in the day, no matter what, because, my God, that was a whole thing. But I didn't want Bait seem more interesting to me just because of, like, even the time gating stuff and whatnot, which is not ideal, obviously. But at the same time, like, it still was, like, progression. And I lean personally more on the side of progression over cosmetics. And NGS is, like, way more, like, cosmetic and the time gating and more, like, flavor of the week type of stuff. Such as augment the weapons and how they give them out. So I think that's the main reason why it feels like less to me. Because I have always been way more into progression. Like, cause I would say that's probably the biggest thing. After the social MMO died, at least, you know, pretty much from WoW onwards, it kind of felt like that had died for me. So I kind of migrated into progression over the social side. And also become more antisocial, more older I get, also probably doesn't help. But, you know, at NGS just did not have that. Which is, like, the main reason why when we have all in-depth talks, it's always, like, mechanic, content, stuff they could do with what they have, stuff they could do if they want to make stuff. But, you know, I usually try to lean more toward what already in the game because, you know, Sega. But yeah, this is, like, an interesting, like, flatback on it. So I think that is it video. So absolutely go give them a follow, chat, and since it will also be probably turned into a YouTube video later after I cut it down because we've been talking for an hour. Great, let's see what I can get it cut down to. If you're watching this after the fact, make sure to do thumbs up, subscribe, hit all the bells over here on YouTube. If you are watching it live, hi, be sure to follow. Be sure to subscribe over here if you're watching it right now on Twitch. Thank you for being here, my dudes. And once again, magic of polls, I will put all the people who is subscribing on Patreon, YouTube, through membership, and subscribing here on Twitch. So thank you, my dudes. And I get with that, up to more PSO video. Actually, I think that was the last PSO video. Either way, up to whatever the net video we are going to be watching is